thank you for tuning in to the very first IndieObscura Digital Direct, or IOX for short. Today, we'll be shining a spotlight on some amazing indie games and indie developers. In the wake of the cancellations like GDC and E3, we felt it was important, now more than ever, to lend a hand to give indies the love, support, and promotion they deserve. We also want to give you, the viewer, something fun to watch at home. During our IOX broadcast, you'll see a diverse collection of indies of all backgrounds and genres. We have a game about a man-eating shark, a game you can chat over a hot cup of coffee, and even a game where you date senior citizens. Get ready for a wild ride of indies, and even more indies, because IOX starts right now. First up in our IOX broadcast is a game about harnessing the power of the wind to defeat opponents in an action-packed 8-player arena. This is Olis Tournament. Olis Tournament looks like a blast. We can't wait to play it this May. We love 2D platformers, especially ones like Foregone. Want to know why? Let us show you as we take a closer look at Foregone.
This world is full of life, full of potential. But now it's under siege, and it's my duty to protect it. I can't let them down. They trained me to kill. But I'm my own greatest weapon. Nothing will stand in my way. Nothing.
Years after a devastating war, the city of Caligan is once again besieged by an all-corrupting force known as the Harrow. As the city's strongest super soldier, It's up to you to investigate the Harrow's origin and prevent its reanimated minions from destroying your home. But the Harrow isn't just reviving the dead, it's dredging up memories better left forgotten. Foregone is a fast and fluid 2D action platformer packed with legendary loot and stunning pixel art. Collect an arsenal of powerful weapons and upgradable skills, then use them to shoot and slash your way through handcrafted pixel environments, hiding a treasure trove of secrets. Unravel a compelling story of regret and conspiracy as you slice and dice your way through hordes of enemies and carry out your mission to save Callaghan from total annihilation. Foregone is available now in early access over on the Epic Games Store. For updates on its release to other platforms, be sure to follow @ForegoneGame on Twitter. Changing pace, our next game is Röki, a beautiful narrative adventure about a girl on a quest to rescue her family. To tell us more a little bit about the game, we have Alex from Polygon Treehouse.
My name's Alex, I'm one of the founding members of Polygon Treehouse, and we're making our debut indie game, which is called Röki.
What was the main inspiration behind Röki's creation?
Well, when Tom and I started Polygon Treehouse, we'd both just come from 13, 14 years working at Sony, and we knew we wanted to make something that was different from what we'd been making before, a bit of a change of pace. This idea of taking classic adventure games like Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Broken Sword, games that we really enjoyed, games that make you think, games, it's a genre that takes loads of different places and tell loads of really varied and diverse stories. We started looking at how we might modernise that genre and do our own take on it. So that, as far as the inspiration by the game, genre-wise, that was a big one. Where was it going to be set? What were you going to be doing? We had quite a few different ideas, but they all quickly faded into the background once we stumbled across Scandinavian folklore.
Can you expand upon some of the Scandinavian folklore themes present in Röki?
It was the monsters that really excited us. In lots of games you encounter monsters, but you're trying to beat them up or chop their heads off. We liked the idea of, hang on a minute, in our game when you meet a monster, maybe like the lion with the thorn in their paw, maybe if you can help them, then maybe they're not quite so scary, and actually maybe the reason why they're acting scary is, there's an underlying issue there, something that they're dealing with. So we really like this idea of meeting misunderstood monsters and helping them rather than harming them.
How many people are working on Röki? Any challenges in making a game with a smaller team?
So Tom and I came, and actually a few of the other team members worked at Sony in the Cambridge studio. It was quite a large art team at our disposal to manage. One of the nice things about going indie is getting much more hands-on with creating artwork and design, and that's one of the things we both really relish. So we've kind of reverted back to our original art roles, so I do all the character animation on the game, Tom does all the environments and a lot of the design work. Then there is a wider team of people who work part-time on the game, so maybe 8 people part-time, various parts of the world. We all work remotely. Here you can see my creative space, my cave, where I create all the creatures and animations for the game. But yeah, being a small team has been really great for us. It's allowed us to work really fast, be quite experimental with what we're doing and trying different things out.
Röki looks absolutely gorgeous. Why was that particular visual style chosen for this game?
When we were looking at defining Röki's art style, one of the key considerations was we wanted to make this big epic game with loads of different locations and monsters and characters with a tiny, tiny team. We looked at it from different angles and we came up with this clean graphical art style that's more about shape and silhouette and pure use of colour to create Röki's art style, and it's something that's a lot of people have become quite enchanted by, which is really nice. It's definitely one of the defining things about the game.
Röki is described as a game for everyone thanks to its accessibility and non-violent gameplay. What are some examples of those aspects?
We were inspired by classic adventure games, but we very much wanted to make a game that people can just pick up the pad or the Switch. And so whenever we've been designing puzzles, we've always tried to make sure that each puzzle step makes logical sense. And so we're reducing some of the frustration there. Also, we have some in-fiction ways to assist the player. So Tubi has a journal that she makes notes in as you're going through the game. We can see not just what she's articulating to the outside world, but also see her inner thoughts as she's writing them down. It also allows us to guide the player if they're maybe stuck with what to do. In terms of the direct control of Tuve, we have no camera controls on the pad. It's taken for granted sometimes that people have that pad skill to be able to do a third-person camera themselves, and actually a lot of people don't have that skill or find it a bit awkward. It allows us to be much more cinematic with the camera. It gives us an extra storytelling tool to play with, which is cinematography, so that's a double win. So on Röki, what we've done a lot of the time when you're exploring the game, we'll have predatory cameras. So we'll stick cameras somewhere in the rafters of a building or in the undergrowth, and they will track Tuve and almost watch you as you're moving around the environment. And this is quite a subtle thing, but this sense of being watched in the game was just another storytelling aspect.
The game centers on Tuve, a young girl who sets off on an adventure to save her family. What else should we know about Tuve's character and personality?
In a lot of the old folk tales, the heroes were often children, and the fact that Tuve is young and she's not jaded by life, that she can look at these creatures, with their many eyes, with their tentacles, with their scary teeth, and see past the monstrous image and really connect with people or monsters. We start off the story and she's kind of the primary carer of her younger brother Lars. Her dad is there, but not very present. As well as this fantastical adventure into the Scandinavian wilderness, it's also a story about the reforging of this broken family, so it has quite a strong emotional core in the game. We found, as the game's been demoed and people have played it and press have played it, people have found her quite likeable. I was very pleased that she was called one of gaming's more likeable child characters, which has been great because kids get visibly excited to play someone that looks, like them, that's a young girl they can play as. So that's been a really powerful thing.
Who is the voice actress for Tuve, and why did you pick that particular voice for your protagonist?
So all the voice acting in the game is done by Scandinavian actors. What we found was that even though the characters aren't fully voiced, we have this big library of emotive sounds that we pick from for different dialogue lines. The inflection that you get from people's Scandinavian accents actually is another ingredient that gives you a real subtle addition to this sense of place. One of our friends recommended Ingvild. For those who don't know, she was Princess Leia in Rogue One. We were all basically just aghast about how good she was, the range that she was able to bring, and the variety in there, and the humour and the warmth was really important. Well done, Ingvild.
Can you tell us more about the sort of creatures and monsters Tuve may encounter in Röki?
Well, I don't want to spoil too much. There's been a few creatures that were revealed already. Some of the Scandinavian staples like trolls, tomtes, like house spirits who you can cheese off, so you have to be careful that you treat them with respect. Basically, we've looked at the creatures that would really appeal to us from Scandinavian folklore and very much done our own spin on. So whether it's their appearance or how they move, we've always tried to bring some of ourselves into those characters to build the cast of creatures in the game. Well, some of the key characters in the games are the Jotun, which are these huge animals we've seen in the trailer, a giant wolf, and we've shown off a giant raven recently. Yeah, I won't say too much about them, but they're ancient creatures, a bit cranky, very cool.
Finally, when is Röki scheduled to release, and on what platforms?
The game was selected by Nintendo to be shown as part of the Indie World live stream at Gamescom, so we're going to be launching on Nintendo Switch and on Steam. We're close to the end of development now, so it's quite an exciting time. It will be out this year, relatively soonish, but we just want to make sure that we're happy with the adventure that we're going to be taking you on.
Thank you, Alex, for taking the time to talk to us about Röki. We look forward to playing the game later this year. Watch out, because there's something lurking in the water, and it looks like it's a Maneater.
Humans kill 100 million sharks every year. But only 5 humans are killed by sharks. It's time to even the score. Eat. Explore. Evolve.
Not everybody made to be a fisherman.
It's shark versus man. Maneater.
Maneater chomps your way on May 22nd. For even more shark madness, follow @ManeaterGame on Twitter. Next up, we have a game with some truly captivating scenery that we think you'll be hooked on. Let us explore Revenant's Reach.
Hi, I'm Darren Gladstone, part of the team here at Homunculus making Revenant's Reach, and by here, I mean, sequestered in our home office. We're a small indie squad based out of Northern California, and like everyone else these days, we're trying to make the most of a crazy time, and we're pushing to make our game. We're really excited to share a little bit about Revenant's Reach today, but I need to make something really clear right up front. Everything you're seeing right now is in its pre-alpha state. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and with that, let me tell you a little bit more about Revenant's Reach. In the game, you are the Revenant. Long after a mysterious blight ravages the land, you rise from a dungeon, withered and with no memory of what happened. Armed only with the Crescent Hook, it's a deadly weapon and a grappling tool, you must confront those who betrayed you. You see, our team grew up loving the classic hard-as-nails adventure platformers like Castlevania and Mega Man. Me, I was more of a Bionic Commando and Ghosts and Goblins kind of guy, but that's neither here nor there. We wanted to create a world, tell a story, and throw down a gauntlet for gamers like us. The challenges in this game are hand-built, forcing you to figure out the patterns, tactics, and puzzles to survive. The results are a tough but fair platformer. You'll be able to figure out where you're supposed to go and what to do next. You'll just have to be able to live long enough to actually do it. You'll need to master the Crescent Hook to tether, swing, and slingshot through physics-based puzzles across this dangerous world. Miss time a move, and you're back at the last checkpoint ready to try again. Platforming is only half the challenge here, though. After all, the Crescent Hook is more than just a tool, it's also your weapon. With it, Revenant's Reach introduces a modern combat system inspired by 2D fighting game mechanics. Block at the right time, and you set your enemies up for a quicker defeat. You always have to be ready to guard, dodge, and quickly counterattack everybody you encounter. Linear stage-based progression encourages you to rerun levels to top online leaderboards and race against ghost images of other players. And yes, there's a full story inspired by the classics, but you'll need to go back through the game and rerun levels in order to unlock the game's true ending. We've talked a bit about the gameplay, but we also wanted to take a second to talk about how we're making Revenant's Reach. The visual style is meant to remind you of the classics but still stand out today. To do that, we're using Unreal Engine 4 tech, bringing the treacherous mutated landscapes to life with a distinct pixelated look. It may sound a little crazy, and it is, because Unreal Engine tech is amazing for rendering photorealism. This game is decidedly not going that route. However, we think it's worth all the challenges. The toolset, combined with the right surface materials, post-processes, and just the right lighting, you can make it look however you want. Now, you combine that with non-orthographic camera and fully rendered 3D scenes, and it allows us to do things we might not be able to do with other engines. Like this neat planar rotation right here as Revenant climbs this tower. There's still a lot of work to be done before Revenant's Reach will be ready in 2021, and we could use your help. Follow us, join the Discord, and rise with us while we build the game we've always wanted to play together. Thanks everyone, and stay healthy.
Revenant's Reach is currently in development. For updates on this awesome indie title, be sure to follow the game's Twitter page, @Revenant's Reach. Man, a cup of coffee sure sounds good right about now, right? Fortunately, our next game has plenty of cups to spare. Here's Coffee Talk.
Hi, my name is Chris Anthony. I'm the game co-writer and also story editor, and I'm also the co-founder of Tokyo Productions.
Hello, my name is Dio, and I am the lead artist and art director of Coffee Talk.
Hello, I'm AJ. I'm the sound designer and audio director of Tokyo Productions, and also the producer for the Coffee Talk.
What inspired you to make Coffee Talk?
The inspiration for Coffee Talk started back in 2017 when we did our internal game jam in the studio. Our marketing manager at the time, Fahmi Hasni, he wanted to replicate the feeling of watching the rain while holding a warm drink and listening to a chill music and having conversation with your friends. So that was the initial idea for Coffee Talk. We created like a very small prototype of the game during the game jam, and it turns out to be very well received internally, and we released that prototype demo to itch.io that received a lot of feedback from players. So we decided to continue expanding on the game and make what Coffee Talk is now today.
Why did you choose a coffee bar as a setting, and why a nighttime one at that?
One of the inspiration was a show called Midnight Diner. We're trying to recreate the feeling of a coffee shop that only opens in the midnight. The visitor can talk to the barista and share the story, just like in the series Midnight Diner.
That is the time where you feel most relaxed. We want to create an atmosphere where people can feel relaxed and they can connect with the characters in the game.
Where did you look to for inspiration on the characters' backstories, and what about their looks and races?
So we wanted Coffee Talk to be a mirror to our real world, and we wanted to discuss or at least bring a lot of topics that might be sensitive, such as like interracial relationships or maybe racial bias, immigration, and so on. So to tackle this, we basically kind of like represent human race in fantasy characters. So for example, like maybe werewolf, succubus, and also elves. We look at what are their social structure, and basically we try to compare that with real life, social groups, and also like what kind of problems would those groups experience, and that's how we figure out like which characters is what kind of a certain type of race or so on.
Why did you decide to go produce a lo-fi soundtrack with Coffee Talk?
As we know, people listen to chill hop music when they study or relax, and coffee shop is also the perfect place for people to relax. So we kind of feel that both aspects are real fit into the game. It goes along the same lines as on the reason why Coffee Talk is made in the first place, is to give players something to play and relax with, chill out atmosphere.
Do you have favorite characters, and if so, why?
My favorite one is Neil, because obviously he's an alien and he's very funny in the game. I mean, I see it very amusing as he got trouble understanding people from Earth because he never knew how to communicate with people before.
My favorite also Neil, because Neil is fun to draw. I had a lot of fun while making the assets. And the second one is because he's a hilarious character and really lighten up the mood of Coffee Talk in the story.
So because everybody already chose Neil as their favorite character, I'll choose a different character. So my favorite one would be Gala, I think, because I just recently replayed the game. It's a very interesting, charming, gentle giant kind of type of character. So he is like one of the most interesting characters in the game, I think.
How big is the team behind Coffee Talk?
Basically, Coffee Talk team, the core team itself has 5 persons. AJ as the producer, Fahmi as the writer, me as the lead artist and the art director, and 2 programmers, which is Frederick and Jovan. But outside the team, outside the core team, we got help from Henry, our art director in Toge Productions, as the cutscenes illustrator, and also we got help from Eka from Mojikan Studio as the background artist that we saw in the interior of the cafe, and also the brewing cutscenes. We got help too about the writing from Chris and from others in Toge Productions as well.
Finally, how pleased are you with the critical reception to Coffee Talk?
We are very happy with the reception of Coffee Talk because this is actually our first time creating a game that's focused on narrative. In our previous games, we mostly focus on strategy elements, mechanics. But this time we focus more into the narrative, the story, and how we develop characters. Because it is our first time, of course, it's not going to be perfect. But from the feedbacks that we receive from players and also from media, it's mostly positive. So we are very happy with it. Of course, we'll try to improve in our future projects, and hopefully we could make more narrative-driven games that could be in a unique perspective or bring a lot of messages that's very relatable to players.
We're happy to see how many of the players actually made some fan arts. There are a lot of them. They are so cool. People also enjoy making the latte arts from the game. Even they become cosplayer out of the character. I mean, that's amazing.
If that game warmed your heart, you'll be happy to hear you can play Coffee Talk right now on Nintendo Switch, PC, PS4, and Xbox One. Not in a peaceful mood? Looking for a fight? We've got you covered. You can whip out your sword and charge into battle in our next indie gem, Chivalry 2.
Civil war left our land in a state of ruin. Amidst the dust of Stone's Hill, Phaedrid, steward king of Agatha, was slain. "20 years have passed. Malric and his Mason Order have ruled since with an iron fist, murdering, pillaging, squeezing the land of its spoils. Now, with winter, comes the rumor of a new leader, King Argon II. As the lion roars, the noble houses rally, bringing forth the steel of the Agatha Knights. The grizzled old king welcomes the battles to come with the full might of the Mason Order. Once more, legends will be born. This bloodshed, who will sit upon the throne?
Chivalry 2 releases later this year. Follow at Chivalry Game for news on when you can chop heads and storm castles. Are you a fan of comics? How about genres like noir and cyberpunk? If so, you're in for a treat, because we're taking a deep dive into the dystopian world of Liberated.
With every passing year, the world we live in is getting worse. Technological progress and instant digital communication were supposed to make our lives easier and more enjoyable. They did not. Data from social media, monitoring systems, and digital payments is accumulated in large databases with individual profiles for every one of us. our corrupt leaders know everything about us, manipulate us, feed us fake news, and sow dissent to keep us under control. They believe this will allow them to do whatever they wish, free of consequence. We will prove them wrong. We are liberated.
Liberated is set to release later this year, and we can't wait to check it out. The aesthetic is out of this world. For updates on the game's release, follow them on Twitter at Atomic Wolf Games. In this surreal RPG, you play as a comatose woman who delves into her dreams in order to overcome her nightmares. Let's take a closer look at She Dreams Elsewhere.
That's what I dream about.
She Dreams Elsewhere is scheduled to release later this year. If you're looking for a deep, compelling narrative that tackles subjects like mental illness and self-identity, you should follow at Studio Zavir on Twitter for updates on the game's release. You know, growing old doesn't necessarily mean you have to give up on finding love, as seen in this new dating game, Later Daters. To tell us more about this game, we have Chris Fitzgerald from Bloom Digital Media.
What inspired you to make a dating game featuring senior citizens?
Our last game, Long Story, featured characters who were 13 years old and they were in high school. And it was about teaching healthy relationships. And we loved making that game and the audience who embraced it. But we do think that dating sims and visual novels, there's a lot that look at young love. It would really be a shame to miss out on telling other kinds of love stories. You know, a love story that takes place at the end of someone's life. There was something that really was beautiful that we wanted to explore a bit more.
How many people are working on Later Daters? Have there been any development challenges making the game with a smaller indie team?
We did a lot of groundwork with our interim technical director, Andrew Carvalho, who helped us solidify our framework and our code base. A long story that made it a lot easier when developing Later Daters. And there were a few times when we took a bit of a break because of funding reasons, but that really allowed us to step back and kind of reevaluate the game and think about how we could make it better. And there's always struggles running an indie game studio, but making Later Daters was a really positive experience for all of us.
Tell us a little more about the sexy seniors gamers can date in Later Daters.
Featuring a cast of captivating silver foxes. Blair, the smooth-talking hustler. Mariana, the former flower child. Esther, the affectionate busybody. Jax, the silver-haired rock star. Crystal, the cheery sweetheart. Albert, the shy green thumb. Salima, the style icon.
In later daters, are there multiple dialogue options and multiple endings depending on player choices?
A ton of dialogue options in the game, and we really want people to be able to make the choices that they want and customize the story as they see fit. There are a bunch of different main plots that run throughout the game, but how much you get to see of those plots really depends on your choices. And of course, you get to decide who you want to pursue and what kind of relationship you want to have. Depending on your choices, certain NPCs may not be open or as flirtatious back, so it's a bit of an unknown in that way.
Later Daters is LGBTQ+ inclusive, as was your previous game, Long Story. Can you speak on the importance of having LGBTQ+ representation in dating sims?
We still, to this day, get messages about Long Story, which came out in 2014, about how it helped them when they were struggling with their identity or figuring things out or just feeling uncomfortable in the dating scene. So I think that's really what dating sim strengths are, is it allows people to explore in a safe space. And we just don't want to limit the choices that they make or how they explore the world. So giving them the options to customize their gender or their sexual orientation, or decide if they want to kiss anyone, who they want to kiss. All those things are important to getting the most out of the dating sim experience.
The description for Later Daters notes that the game touches upon the subject of mortality and vulnerability. Was it difficult writing about these themes?
So issues like death and feeling lonely, those are things we all struggle with, and senior citizens, those are sometimes more immediate concerns for them, and so they don't really tiptoe around those subjects. So it's definitely something that we knew we would have to handle head on. And I think that's what we love about shows like Golden Girls. It was hilarious, but they would really kind of delve into those darker issues and really face it head on. Our writing team is really talented, and whenever there was a more serious scene, we would just take time to make sure we were doing it right and giving the issues enough space while still maintaining some levity and having a balance to the story.
Along with dating, are there any other side activities to enjoy in Later Daters, like checkers or tracking down your in-game companion?
The game is episodic, so each episode has its own story arc. Each character has its own backstory, so you get to explore those as you go along. In the first episode, your pet escapes, and so you get to explore the home while you track them down. And even if you aren't romantically pursuing certain characters, it's definitely a good idea to get to know some of them, because that's really going to enhance the story and give more of a multi-layered narrative for everyone. And we're releasing episode 4 and 6 later this year, and we have a lot of fun things planned for that story-wise and activities-wise.
This may be a potentially inappropriate question, but how far can you go when it comes to romance in Later Daters?
Part 1 of Later Daters all takes place within a week, so you're not going to be jumping anyone's bones right away, but definitely some opportunities for smooches depending on who you pursue. And in Part 2, we're going to give people a chance to live out their fantasy and go all the way if they so choose.
Finally, when is Later Daters scheduled to release, and what platforms will it be available on?
Later Daters Part 1 releases on Steam and Switch on April 16th.
Ready to date some single seniors? You can as soon as April 16th, when Later Daters is officially released. The theme of love continues in Haven, a game about two lovers settling down on an unknown world.
In Haven, you share the journey of two lovers escaped to a lost planet in a desperate attempt to stay together. You play as U and K, gliding over the grassland of a shattered planet, unraveling its mysteries, looking for a way to settle down. The nest is their ship and home. It's a place for storytelling, but also crafting and healing. But most importantly, it's a place where they live together and develop their relationship. They glide while exploring the planet. Gliding is smooth and simple and feels a bit like skiing with someone. While gliding, they can gather flow, an energy coming directly from nature. Sometimes a flow thread can make you fly and reach new areas. Rust is that pink layer that covers the ground. They don't know what it is, but they can clean it with flow, gather chunks of it, and use it as a base material for crafting. Creatures are also affected by rust. When rusted, they become aggressive and dangerous. In combat, you charge orders for both characters by holding buttons. However, it's not turn-based and requires both tactics and reactivity. Both characters need to combine and chain actions to be effective, a little bit like in a volleyball match. When playing solo, you play both characters at the same time, like you would in any RPG with a team of heroes. But at any time, a friend or a loved one can pick up the second controller and take control of one of the characters and share that unique experience with you.
Haven releases later this year. To track its release date and more information, be sure to follow @TheGameBakers. Are you ready for one of the cutest indies releasing this year? We sure are. Let's learn more about Concord and Friends in this upcoming social sim adventure RPG game, Garden Story.
Hi everyone, my name's Jenny and I'm the community developer for Rose City Games, here to talk with you about Garden Story. Garden Story is being created by solo developer Picogram with music by Graham Nesbitt, and in it you play as Concord, the youngest grape in the grove and its last active guardian. Blending social sim and adventure RPG mechanics, players traverse the 4 villages of the once prosperous island, coaxing life back into the surrounding areas. Unfortunately, a dangerous rot has corrupted the life-giving waters of the grove, and Concord unexpectedly finds themselves as the sole guardian after their mentor Plum goes missing. In addition to proving themselves capable to all the other villagers, Concord must determine the cause of the growing rot, prevent it from spreading, and team up with the residents of the grove to revitalize their homes. In the gameplay we show here, which is from the Autumn Town demo, we'll start up at a location you'll find later in Concord's journey to reunite different areas of the grove. Concord's originally from Spring Hamlet, and this highlights a location called Autumn Town, an area that's been disconnected from the rest of the villages. There's a lot for just one grape to shoulder, so Concord must learn how to ask for help. They'll be able to lend a hand to those in need, completing favors for fellow villagers, and in return, will be able to ask for their new friends' assistance with daily requests posted on the town board. Throughout your adventure, you'll meet a fruity cast of characters like Fuji, the no-nonsense apple, Elderberry, the wise leader of the grove, Rana, the sassy frog, and more. By working together, they'll be able to get more and more done each day. Garden Story's gameplay is inspired by titles like Zelda, Secret of Mana, and Stardew Valley, so there's never a dull moment in the life of a guardian. Concord will keep busy both within maintaining the quality of life in each village as well as exploring the wider world of the grove. Between keeping the insidious rot at bay, solving puzzles and exploring dungeons, gathering a variety of resources, restoring the old archives, and befriending fellow fruits, this little guardian will have a lot to keep track of. But Garden Story allows you to take this role at your own pace, and if you need to stop and relax for a bit before moving on to your next task, you can. Garden Story is not your typical tale of a lone hero saving the entire world. While Concord is a determined protagonist, you'll need the help of your friends and neighbors to find success. What sets this game apart from other adventure RPGs is the balance you'll need to set between maintaining the village's quality of life in tandem with progressing in the larger goals of the story. The rot may be the most recognizable enemy in Garden Story, but the true conflicts you're fighting against are poor circumstance and separation. Communities are stronger when the individuals within them work together. And in Garden Story, you'll guide fellow Grove inhabitants to rebuild, cultivate, and protect your home together. Before we're done, we wanted to be sure you got the chance to see some of the scenes and life beyond Autumn Town, so let's close out with the game's official teaser trailer. If you like what you see, please consider wishlisting Garden Story on Steam, and thanks for watching!
We can't wait to hang out with Concord later this spring. For updates on Garden Story's development and release, follow them at Picogram on Twitter. Indie games are truly works of art. Up next, we have a unique masterpiece, Infini. Infini is a psychedelic puzzle adventure set in a never-ending void that personifies the concepts of life. Lost in this strange world, Hope must overcome diverse challenges as he searches for a way back home. Learn new abilities, overcome more than 100 mind-bending puzzles, and interact with bizarre characters like war, poetry, and time in this challenging and unique adventure. Infini promises to be quite an adventure, one you can go on right now as Infini is currently available on Steam. Have you ever met someone you felt destined to meet? Almost as if your connection was forged by fate? If so, we've got the perfect game for you, Half Past Fate. We think you'll love Half Past Fate, and highly recommend you check it out as it's available on Steam right now. Are you a master of stealth? Do you want to learn the ways of the ninja? If you said yes to either of these, we've got a game for you. Here's Sneaky Ninja. Sneaky Ninja releases early 2020. For the exact release date of this adorable indie, be sure to follow at SFS Games on Twitter. Switching up the tone, we have an indie set in 90s Indonesia that features a story about overcoming anxiety and depression, and the relationship between a boy and a girl with supernatural powers. Sit back and enjoy A Space for the Unbound.
Hello, I'm Dimas, the art director for the A Space for the Unbound. A Space for the Unbound is an adventure game set in 90s rural Indonesia that explores the relationship between boy and girl with supernatural power. The central character, there is Atma and Raya, and through the course of the game, we discover each other's secrets and learn how to deal with it.
What was the main inspiration behind the creation of A Space for the Unbound?
I just want to write a story about a girl who has a deep secret, and the inspiration comes a lot from movies, manga, and anime. Some of them are based on slice of life genre, and there's some like magical realism genre too. I inspired a lot by movies like Inception and The Truman Show, and then manga by Oshimi Suzusan. And I want to draw the Indonesian environment.
A Space for the Unbound takes place in 90s Indonesia. Why did you choose this time period and setting?
At first, 90s wasn't really the core of the Space for the Unbound. Originally, I just want to give a tribute to the time where I growing up as Indonesian who grew a lot by watching anime. And I just really want to preserve the time back in the day. I was blown away by Makoto Shinkai Sensei's work, his film, and he used a lot of real life locations. There is some kind of term that is anime pilgrimage, which a group of people doing a tour to a real life location of the anime, and it inspired me a lot to do that. I mean, if you can draw again our environment, our surrounding, our hometown in the different visuals, especially pixel art, maybe we can appreciate the place we live in more, and we add some new value to them.
A Space for the Unbound deals with themes of anxiety, depression, and relationship dynamics. Were these difficult to write about?
Yes, it is. It is quite hard actually. We want to make player able to digest a serious topic slowly and with a good pace when we wrote the story. We want to make sure we can balance between light-hearted topics and heavier subject, and not leaving behind the entertainment aspect of it. And we also try to consult a professional too for more serious topic subject to lay a good foundation. If we talk about depression and anxious, there isn't something physically can be seen, right? While in the game, we sometimes has to interact with something very visual and to make a game design that connect with the story. After the development, we found the ingredient to make it. We include a lot of like humor too, and we hope people, when the time ready for the serious subjects come, people I hope will be ready for it.
A Space for the Unbound features music from Masdito Ito Bakhtiar. What are some of the key musical elements in the game's soundtrack that players can expect to hear while playing the game?
Yeah, our primary key is building the atmosphere and not really constricted with the instrument, but we mainly use synthesizer In the theme of the game, there is a keroncong music that serves for a cultural reference for the game itself. We want to use the music as a support for the visual and the story, and we hope the music itself is good enough to be listened as a game soundtrack too.
How many people worked on A Space for the Unbound, and were there any unique challenges in completing the game as an indie team?
Okay, right now there are 7 people as a core developer, and there is 2 artists and 1 producer, 2 narrative and gameplay designer, and 1 programmer, and 1 music composer. And in this game we had very fun. Everybody was very collaborative. First, as the challenge itself, my role here as the initiator of the project, laying out the visual boundaries, the story boundaries, and the core game design. And then we will let everyone to give their creative input, and then we discuss it. So far, it was very collaborative. There is a lot of various elements that in the game that makes the game more colorful, I think. And the another challenge will be managing expectations and the scoping. Sometimes there are great gameplay elements that we're really excited about, but we can't apply it because of our very limited resources. But yet sometimes we found a design solution because of our limited resource too. And then I think that is the fun part of the developing this game.
The pixel art in the game is absolutely gorgeous. What was the process like when it comes to making the game look the way you wanted it to look?
Okay, thanks for the compliment. So the artist consists of me, my friend Roland Melvin, and my friend again Eka Pramudita. For the visual itself, I especially influenced a lot by Makoto Shinkai movies and Ghibli movies. And there is in the internet a pixel artist named Oyoi Yuta. Like, he draw a lot of slice of life scene, but with very detailed pixel art, and at the same time it's very simple yet very realistic. And Space for the Unbound, if I want to make a keyword for it, it's like a simplified realism, the thing that we really want to achieve. It is calming, relaxing, heartwarming, but sometimes very mysterious too. And to make it more accurate, sometimes with exploration around our neighborhood, resource gathering. So if you see one house in the background, there will be a lot of detail that you can see because we want to make it very lively as possible.
In the list of game features on Steam, one thing that jumped out at us was dive into people's minds Inception style. Can you touch upon this a little more, or would doing so give too much away?
Oh yes, that is the space dive, the main supernatural power that Atma has, the main character. He can dive into someone's mind and heart and take a peek inside them and see what people are thinking and what are they anxious about. That element is really serve as a crucial narrative point for the overall story and the gameplay. Sometimes it can help to solve a puzzle and how it incorporated the story.
Finally, when is A Space for the Unbound scheduled to release, and on what platforms?
Space for the Unbound is in the development right now. We can't really share detail regarding the release date, but we will announce it when it's ready. Of course, stay tuned at our Twitter and Facebook. Right now, we already released it on PC. The demo, the prologue chapter, you can play it at Steam and itch.io. For the future, we think of bring it to other console too, such as PS4, Xbox, and Switch. Let's see, let's see how it turns out. But for the starters, we want to release it to console too, aside from the PC, of course.
A Space for the Unbound looks like a beautiful game with an equally beautiful story. For updates, follow at ASFTU Game on Twitter. Train stations are fascinating to watch with the constant ebb and flow of passengers. In Station Flow, you're given the power to construct and conduct this flow. Let's check it out. Station Flow is available right now in early access on Steam. For a little less management and a little more music, we have When the Past Was Around, a point-and-click narrative about love, moving on, and letting go. Let's take a closer look.
Hello everyone, I'm Rena from Mojiken Studio. I mostly do the art direction, and this is...
Hello, my name is Elwin Lysander. I'm the technical director on Mojiken Studio.
And we are the creator of When the Past Was Around. So, When the Past Was Around is an adventure point-and-click puzzle game about love, moving on, letting go, and the joy and pain of everything in between. It tells a story of Ada, an aspiring violinist who almost giving up on her dream. Then she met a mysterious owl-headed man that inspired her and make her fall in love with him.
When the Past Was Around is listed as part of Mojiken Camp. Can you tell us a little more about Mojiken Camp and how it influenced the game's creation?
Mojiken Camp is some kind of internal gem for Mojiken Studio that started back in 2015. And at the time, most of us are just illustrators and artists with zero or little experience with game development. But we wanted to create games anyway, so we learned some basic programming skill with a tool named Construct 2, and also game asset work pipeline and pixel art and a bit of game design. The goal of Mojiken Camp is all about each of us to have a game of our own with our personality input into it.
Fast forwarding to 2019, we invited our fans and audience to decide our Mojiken Camp prom themes. The selected themes was future memories. So with my own personal interpretation, I designed a narrative about a couple who trapped in their memories of the past, reminiscing about what they lost and a quest to find a future with those valuable memories. And so that was the time When the Past Was Around was born.
When the Past Was Around features a distinct color palette. What drew you to this particular color scheme?
The first thing is this game tells about Ada dearest memories. I want to make some nostalgic mood using a warm color palettes. I also take great reference from my favorite illustrator, named as Of Sparrows, Yuko Higuchi, Mauri Sakai, and Pung for this project. So they have this warm everyday life theme in their illustration, but also a bit of whimsical feeling in it, so I want to translate it into the game.
What was it like bringing Ada to life in When the Past Was Around? Have you experienced any of the struggles that Ada faces in the game?
Well, it's a bit of... it made us shy to talk about this, but for your information, both of us developers are also couple. Of course, in some kind of way, the characters and narrative were unintentionally and unconsciously inspired by our relationship. Especially our life as an artist, I think, can be compared with the violinist struggles like Ada in the story.
I think it's about how we inspire each other, Elwin and I, both in creating art and in life. Even though the story of Ada and Owl is just a fiction we made, but we want to put little details about what we have in our daily life into the game.
Why did you decide to make Eda's lover an owl?
We plan to make some kind of a piece, a lover from the start, just like the Ancient Magus Bride by Kore Yamasaki or The Girl from the Other Side by Nagabe. But at first we didn't know what kind of piece we should portray him.
But since I love drawing birds and plants, I think it is better to make a bird-headed man or plant-headed man for this beast character. After a little searching, I chose an owl because owl represent wisdom, knowledge, and the guardian of the past. And that is what Ada needs in her difficult states of her life.
What sort of puzzles can players expect, and was it difficult creating puzzles that are approachable yet still challenging?
Creating a challenging puzzle is actually the most challenging part of the development. Several redesigns and tuning are made because of this sole reason. We wanted our puzzle to have ties with the narrative itself. We wanted the players to be able to experience the romance between Ada and Owl. And We wanted the players to have fun with the puzzles rather than being frustrated with playing and solving it, and find some hidden stories within it.
There's a noticeable theme of music throughout When the Past Was Around. How does music impact the game's story, and who composed the soundtrack for When the Past Was Around?
Because our game is without written and spoken narrative, music is pretty much vital to convey the emotion of every scene. Then Mas Dito Baktiar composed all the music in this game. He's our in-house composer. And when we see the full gameplay, then we realize that it is better to have real violinists in this game. So we get a help from a violinist session player named Yayan to play the soundtrack.
What else should gamers know about When the Past Was Around before they play it?
Well, we try our best to make this game without any dialogue at all. So the story is told with character gesture, environmental storytelling, and music. So I hope with this, people could interpret the story of When the Past Was Around freely, depending on their experience in relationship and I think in real life experience as well.
What platforms will the game release on? Are you planning to release the game on other platforms in the future, like Nintendo Switch?
We cannot say much about it, but we aim for the PC first, then mobile.
Yeah.
If things are going alright, it won't close any possibility to take this game to console as well.
A huge thanks to the team for walking us through When the Past Was Around. If the game captivated you the way it did us, stay tuned for its release later this year. You can also follow at Mojiken Studio for updates. Looking for a new puzzle game with a captivating story attached? Look no further than Mystic Pillars. Mystic Pillars is playable right now on Steam, and if you're a puzzle fan, we highly recommend it. Hungering for an RTS with a comedic twist and deck building mechanics? Perfect, because we are serving one up with Necronator Dead Wrong.
Hi, my name is Chris Anthony. I'm the game director for Necronator Dead Wrong, and I'm also the CEO and founder of Toge Productions. So Necronator Dead Wrong is a micro RTS strategy game that's mixed with roguelike deck building gameplay. So imagine a tower defense game, but mixed with Slay the Spire style deck building, where you play as the villain that summons the undead units, and your goal is to destroy the kingdom's castle. So it's like reverse tower defense with deck building and card mechanics.
The game is described as a comedic micro RTS. For those that are unfamiliar, what is the difference between a micro RTS and a regular full-scale RTS?
The term micro RTS, it means a smaller scale real-time strategy game. We don't have that full-scale mechanic where you have to build your base and etc. But we focus more on a smaller specific real-time strategy. So for example, in Necronator, you don't have to build bases, but you only have to manage like which type of unit that you want to spawn, and in which direction should they move, like which path should they take.
Is there a learning curve in Necronator Dead Wrong, or is it approachable for newcomers to RTS and deck building style games?
So one of the reasons why we want to make Necronator as a micro RTS combined with deck building is because we feel like classic RTS games, it has a very high entry barrier. newcomers, they sometimes they couldn't directly play the game. They have to learn all the mechanics first. They have to understand like the dynamics of the units and so on. So we want to lower that entry barrier. So you have to only focus on spawning units and figuring out which path that you should send them to destroy the enemy's castle. You also utilize your cards, your decks. Anybody who never played RTS before or deck building games before, they could try this game and could understand it really, really quickly. Even though it has a low entry barrier, it's easy to learn, easy to play, but very hard to master. So if somebody who really loves the game, they could play the game over and over and figure out new strategies, figure out new tactics or new meta that they could use to win the game, basically. And there's also, the game is randomly generated, so players have to adapt, like for example, like which type of cards you should choose during a gameplay, because in every run you can have the different possibilities of what kind of card that you get. So you have to adapt and learn what's the best way to utilize those cards in your strategy. On top of that, you can also customize your deck at the end of every battle. You can draft new cards. You can get random encounters or event encounters that you can get rewarded with new cards. And it's up to the player to figure that out, like what is the best way, or like what's their chosen playstyle or their favorite strategy. And you can choose. At the moment, we only have one commander, but in the future we'll have more commanders in the game. Every commander have their own abilities, their own decks, set of decks and cards. Player can unlock new cards, and they can choose and customize like which one they want to use.
The Necronator itself has a really cute, memorable design. How did the Necronator come into being, and how are they incorporated into the game itself?
Yeah, so funny story is the design for the Necronator, the cute bat, is because one day I was arguing with Jonathan, our COO. He wanted to have a character that's very cute and memorable that people would love, and we were arguing like what kind of character would that be, and so on and so on. Hearing our argument, our artists in the back, they started drawing and sketching, scribbling on their own design. We haven't even finished arguing, and then they come into the room and showed like, okay, this is gonna be the Necronator. Okay, that's pretty cute. So, and then that stuck with the game. The lore in the game was the Necronator, the ultimate necromancer, the most powerful necromancer in the world, accidentally cursed himself and turned himself into a bat, a hopeless, a powerless bat. And he's trying to coerce other commanders and other undead or like evil villains to basically help him regain that power. That becomes, the story for the true bat.
Do you have an early access roadmap for Necronator Dead Wrong for gamers to follow, such as when additional commanders will be released?
Yeah, we actually have the roadmap posted in the Steam store page. You can check that out. And we'll be updating the game every 2 weeks, and usually big updates comes once in a month. Yeah, basically we'll keep updating new content until the game is fully complete.
When do you expect the game to release out of early access, and do you plan to port the game to other platforms like Xbox One or Switch?
Hopefully we'll have the game fully completed by this year. We don't have an exact date at the moment. Yes, we do hope we could bring this to other platforms, but at the moment we couldn't make any promises yet, so fingers crossed.
Take it from us, Necronator is a ton of fun. Even better, it's available on Steam right now. Finally, we are shifting gears to the shifting sands of Egypt in Sons of Ra, a tower defense game where you and your opponent will fight to become the ruler of Egypt.
Sons of Ra is a competitive tower defense game that just about anyone can pick up and play. Players choose between a number of Egyptian gods and fight across board game-like battlefields that are inspired by the region itself.
What inspired you to create a game like Sons of Ra?
So Sons of Ra actually began as a class project in college, and it was just a game that we wanted to make. Our team met there, and when the class came to a close, we came together to finish the project and make a full game out of it.
Can you explain the basics of combat in Sons of Ra, how everything is set up, and what it takes to win?
Yeah, we took the best aspects of tower defense and auto battler games and added our own real-time twist. So the players will do things like setting up towers and defenses, but will also create units to attack their opponent. Units and towers act on their own, so players focus on larger, more macro strategies. To win, the player has to destroy their opponent's base by getting enough of their units to the other side of the map, while protecting their own base.
Is there a learning curve to Sons of Ra, or is it relatively approachable for newcomers to the tower defense genre?
There is a bit of a learning curve, as there is with any strategy game, but we've seen complete newcomers to the genre, and even to games in general, still pick up things in just a few minutes. One of our main goals has been to make Sons of Ra as accessible as possible, while still maintaining enough depth for veterans to enjoy as well.
How many deities can players choose from in Sons of Ra? Do all of these deities have their own unique pros and cons?
At the moment, we have 4 different gods that are ready to play: Ra, Isis, Anubis, and Set. Each one lends themselves to different playstyles and affects how players can interact with the game. For example, Anubis has abilities that focus on overwhelming the opponent with units, while Isis has more defensive abilities that keep her existing units alive longer.
What are some of the units and structures players can set up as they play the game?
So there are 4 types of units and 4 types of towers that can be built during a game. We have ranged archers and powerful shield bearers. Spearmen are so cheap that you can make a dozen of them without even thinking about it. You can build obelisks, which can destroy almost anything in one hit, or sun temples, which can damage multiple enemies at once. Our catapults push units out of the way and destroy towers that your opponent has built up. Everything that you can do lends itself to a constant push and pull with your enemy over control of the game.
Visually, Sons of Ra is a striking game. What was the process of map construction like? Were there any challenges in making them all feel and play differently?
When thinking of maps, we try to come up with a unique visual theme and a unique mechanic or gameplay style that we want to explore. Visually, we have a wealth of historical and mythological reference. Senet is actually based off a real board game, one of the first in human history, and in Valley, we tried to incorporate the landscape seen in Egypt's Valley of the Kings and make the map feel like it's a relic that was found beneath the sand. Nailing the feel of these maps comes from making something we think is fun and then testing it and refining it until it actually is fun.
The game features 1v1 battles. Will there be both online and local co-op options? What about single player with AI?
At the moment, we have both local competitive and single player modes available, and our current task is expanding that single player into a more fleshed out experience. Online is something we would absolutely love to include, but we're still researching ways that we can make it viable given our small team size and development timeline.
Will there be any open betas or demos for Sons of Ra ahead of its release?
Yes, we plan to host a number of free beta events before launch, and you can sign up for those by heading to our Discord server. If you head on over to the Sons of Ra Steam page, there's a large banner you can click on, and that will take you to the sign-up form on our Discord.
Lastly, when is Sons of Ra expected to release, and on what platforms?
We'll be doing an early access release on Steam this summer with a subsequent full release on PC and Xbox sometime after that.
You can track the exact release date by following @FairhoundGames on Twitter. We want to take this moment to thank all of the incredible indie teams who agreed to participate in IOX. We also want to thank you, the viewer, for joining us in supporting these games. If you were drawn to any of the indies shown in our broadcast, we encourage you to head over to our Twitter page, where we'll be posting an IOX recap and info on where you can follow the devs and buy their phenomenal games. We hope you're staying safe, healthy, and cozy at home playing indie games. We know we are. I'm wearing pajama pants right now. Until next time, friends, keep supporting indie games and indie developers.